Welcome to the Consultant's Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMahon and Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultant's Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMahon and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to the Consultant's Way podcast. Anthony Paluska, Dean McMahon. Dean, how are you?
Doing great. This is the first weekend coming up, and maybe 4 or 5 weeks at least, that we had events at our house with our giant family. So this weekend we do not. So I get to do all those honey-dos, all the things that we've been putting off that we need to do. And by the way, you look very nice today, Anthony. Yeah, sporting a coat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cold.
You know what? People would complain that I was always too formally dressed on these. If you wear a coat, man, I'm going back to a suit.
Hey, I mix it up. I was wearing a golf shirt the other day, and I'm wearing this.
You just want people to know you have a full closet.
I have to show off an entire wardrobe. I think that's important.
Yeah, if the content they don't love, they'll love the different clothes.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. Most of our listeners, most people listen versus view. So this whole talk is completely useless to all of those people.
Well, maybe they'll turn in and visualize it. So today we have Stephen, and I'm very excited about that because Stephen, and everybody will get this, Stephen chose to go out on his own and build his own firm. And that's something I did. So it's great to talk to someone who's in, I would call him the end of stage one. He's got clients, he's got employees, but he hasn't seen his full vision yet, right? He's not at what we call critical mass. And it's fun to hear how he decided it, what his struggles are. And then I feel like we'll have him back in maybe 6 months and get an update, because so many people in consulting and PS go through this analysis of, would I be better if I set something up myself, right? And what would that be like? So it's a very exciting talk.
No, it is. And he'll explain his background. I think it's important that he does that because there's, to your point, many people go through this journey, and there's lots of different backgrounds and paths that you can have to starting your own consulting organization. And so there's the path that Stephen talks about, where he did this type of activity as a consultant for larger firms and then wanted to branch out on his own, and he'll talk through all the reasons why. But then there's also, and with that, you have your own set of challenges and difficulties and things that you have to work through and develop and round out as far as your understanding of how everything operates, right? And then you have others that may be an expert on a specific topic, but have not actually consulted on that. And so you need to go through a different kind of journey of, I already have the credibility and the expertise, and I can leverage my old brand, my own experiences. I've been there, done that before. I could sit next to people, but how do you actually consult and lead and guide someone through that? That's different than when they all report to you and you're doing it within your organization. And so how you think through those kinds of things are different. And there's lots of other archetypes there of people that start this, but there's things to be learned for anybody that's going along this journey. But I do think it's important to anchor this in, like, okay, well, where are you coming at this from? Because that experience is going to be unique depending on how you're approaching the transition from doing something else to becoming a consultant as part of your own consulting organization.
Excellent point. And we're going to get to that. So let's get on to Stephen.
Yes. All right. Hey, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Excited to have this conversation with you. Excited to dive into it. We'll have given a little bit of a background on the conversation and on you prior to this, but please tell us a little bit about your story, your journey, and kind of where you and Immersive Tech stand right now.
And what part of Texas are you from? So all of them, if you could just cover that.
Absolutely. The very west part.
Yeah.
Sorry, very east. Well, I suppose if you go west enough.
Yeah, go far enough either direction, you'll find
Yeah,
home.
this is going to be news to everybody, but the Earth is round. Okay.
There'll be some people surprised by that statement.
Yeah. So I'm Stephen Shorey. I'm the founder and principal consultant for Immersive Tech. My background is in managed service and engineering and IT. I have 20 years experience delivering and involved in complex programs, multi-industry ERP and SaaS experience, global multi-site delivery, and senior delivery at this stage. I started off as an engineer, worked my way up through regional management to project management, worked on many complex projects across multiple companies that I thoroughly enjoyed, worked for a lot of great people, and decided to start a business and consultancy helping other companies improve from the experiences that I've found and my colleagues have.
Very interested in diving into immersive tech and the statement that you made on services that bring clarity to complex transformation and unpacking what that means. But before we even dive into that, you did this for many years, and then you decided to take the bold step of branching out and doing it on your own. How did that process go? What was the thinking behind some of that?
It's a long process to decide to start a company, or in my case, it was. I think the technology market is expanding and changing rapidly at the moment. I've thoroughly enjoyed the areas and the businesses I've worked with, but I also have an understanding that a job isn't for life in this current age. And I decided that I could find and help additional companies and expand my portfolio by starting the company and working with some of the people I've worked with before, some of the best people I've worked with in my own consultancy, and expanding and working in different areas all at the same time. So it's been really enjoyable. I'm also a glutton for punishment, clearly, because starting a business is really challenging. But I enjoy challenges, and I'm at my best when I've got multiple things that I'm working on, and I'm not twiddling my thumbs, as it were. So,
Stephen, I've started, as you know, a couple of things, and I always find it interesting on what the original motivation was. For me, it was wanting to work in an environment that mirrored my values, right? But what was the if you could nail one or two things that said, yeah, no, I really should do this separate from larger practices, separate from helping internally or externally. I need to be on my own.
I think it was multiple events throughout my working life that made me think that it would be a good idea to do something that, or create something that I build myself. I have worked in transitional management and operational improvement and implementations. And implementations from themselves, you take them from a small business scope or idea all the way through to implementation and managing something really large. And I enjoyed that ethos, that feeling, that that perspective of I've built something here, and now it's kind of created its own life and it's growing in that way. And I think starting a business was my way of doing that. I could create something. I had a business case. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then as it's growing, and I'm seeing these sort of areas that it's going into, that was what I was really wanted in a way. I wanted to build something that I could help other people with, but also start my own company that had the right kind of ethics and movement and working in the right kind of technical areas that I wanted to work in with the people I wanted to work with. And I think that was it. There was a lot of points where I thought, oh, I could use that to the experiences that I've garnered from working with these different companies and the different projects that I've run. I think a project manager, or how I started out as a project manager, is well placed when it comes to starting a company, because ultimately everything's a project in life. My wife might get a bit frustrated with me sometimes because I try and plan everything, but it's the same with my business. And when I started the business, that's what I was. That was the point. I had a scope, I had an idea, I had experience that made me think that it was something I wanted to do, and it's kind of transpired from there. But there was multiple points where I thought this would be something I'd enjoy, and so far I've thoroughly enjoyed it as well. So
Well, Stephen, we'll next time we get together, we'll talk more about your marriage. But today, what's really exciting, I think, and I've gotten the blessed of being able to talk to you a few times. Um, what I'm very impressed with is you're trying to build an organization. We may, and a lot of people have to face this decision: should I be out in my own practice, right? What I've been impressed with significantly by you is you're trying to build an organization so that the values and abilities and concepts you have can be applied to many clients. And
absolutely.
and we see so many people who I just want to be out on my own, and then 10 years later they're out on their own, and maybe they're making money or not, but they're not really impacting a lot of organizations. So again, what I've been impressed with is your whole strategy, and talk a little bit about that.
Because of the technology landscape at the moment, the everything's changing so fast for everyone. ERP, tech stacks, what people are working on, industries are changing left, right, and center. We what we've been able to deliver and what we've been able to help implement with multiple companies is a way of working that is agile through evaluation of where they currently are with their people and their actual systems, and the synchronization, bringing those two things together, reducing friction, improving productivity and utilization. We do that through business process and operational model design. It could be project recovery and delivery assurance. There's multiple ways that we have to review and help companies make the right decisions. Ultimately, they always have good people. They always have an amazing tech stack. Usually, it's not usually the actual software itself. I mean, we're software agnostic anyway. We don't have a definitive vendor. We're vendor neutral. We're interested in actually what sits behind where they currently are, where the frustrations are, and how they can improve. And that's kind of what our organization does is help find where those challenges lie and how to improve them. And we do that through the projects that we run.
That's great, and that methodology, to Dean's point, and your approach is, I think, over your career probably served you very well. But that, I mean, it's so critical in the early days, and early days are years sometimes, right? Of building a business and a reputation and a brand around some of that stuff. But that commitment to the client outcomes, driving some of those things forward, right? Just in hearing you say that, I think will end up carrying you a long way on that particular journey. What as you've gone through this, any big surprises, any big challenges that you faced that you didn't anticipate, right? There's challenges every day in starting your own firm and going out and getting new clients and trying to do some of these things. But is there anything that completely caught you off guard that said, wow, I didn't expect that to be as difficult as it was, and I've worked through it now, and now we're doing something. I mean, curious what snuck up on you as part of this process.
That's a good question. There's been multiple challenges throughout the first year of being in business. Ultimately, I've found the actual delivery and working with the organizations has been it's been fine. It's something you have experience in before starting the company. It was more making that decision in that first couple of months as I went live with the company, having those discussions and questioning myself to a certain extent. I think we all do, but there was certainly an amount of imposter syndrome that I felt when I first started the company, which has obviously reduced down a lot more now. But it was something I was battling in the first couple of months. So I think it was more the discussion with myself and dealing with those voices in my head saying, "Can you do this? Is this the right thing?" when I first started. But the actual delivery and moving forward and working with customers has been fine. It was just I think that first 2-3 months, that those voices in your head saying, "Have you done the right thing?" Moving away from that, that that standardized way of working as a permanent position with a large company. Have you done the right thing? And ultimately, I think I have hopefully made the right decision, and it's been good. But yeah, imposter syndrome. I think in the first couple of months, thinking, did I do the right thing or not?
Stephen, you have done the right thing. So,
Yeah.
but again, as someone who went through that, I think fighting our, if you'll allow me to use more graphic terms, fighting our own demons and the stories we tell ourselves is equal challenge to any of the business challenges, because we starting as very small children, we're told don't touch the stove, don't do this, don't do that, just to keep it safe. And then as we grow to be adults, particularly those that are analytical, and we all three are, uh, avoiding failure, avoiding missteps is ingrained in us. So when you take a step that big, yeah, your internal mechanisms are. I always thought it was the most fun when you wake up in the morning before you have your coffee or whatever, and that's when you're most attacked. Like, what are you thinking?
I've been talking to a friend who's just recently branched out and started his own thing as well in the past couple of months, and we had a conversation last week, and it was funny because it's one of those situations, to your point, Stephen, where you there's the imposter syndrome, but there's the self doubt, there's all these things, right? And you need a good support system. I'd like to talk about how you work through some of that in here in just a second. But his example was, you know, hey, I'm sending proposals out to people, and it's the first time I've priced something like this at that. And if they don't respond immediately, or if they don't say yes, or if something happens, oh man, I priced it too high, and you second guess how you priced it because you thought you priced it too high for the next couple of days. But if they respond and they say yes, then you spend the next couple of days saying, well, I priced it way too low. I should have priced it more. They would have said yes for something. So there's not a sweet spot. You can't possibly know what that sweet spot is. And if you're going to send something out in a good outcome, especially in the early days, is, hey, we sent out a proposal, and oh, by the way, they said yes, and we started getting paid to do something. If you're still going to question yourself, that's just the nature of what happens until there's enough of those data points to build up, and you get some of that scar tissue of that self-doubt, so that you can start to say, no, I have confidence in what I'm doing, and I know, and I can stand behind the value of the work that I provide. And I know that if they say no, it's not a pricing problem, and if they say yes, it's not because I priced it too low, right? There's a good value there. There's countless things like that happen in that journey. So talk about support system, talk about how you work through some of that, talk about how you just manage whether that's with your team, just external, and I know those blend a little bit. And so, yeah, how have you worked through some of that self-doubt?
Technology's been fantastic. From a support perspective, I have colleagues and ex-colleagues I've worked with in the past, and friends and family are in similar job roles and positions who've been able to give me some support when I first started. I also spoke to some colleagues who are working with me now, who gave some great advice as well when it came to costings and rate cards, as you spoke about. I was very lucky in putting together some calculators and rate card bits and pieces to work out exactly what pricing we should go in at. And ultimately, there's a lot of information online now where you can see what the going rates are for different consultancies, and what you're looking at. So a lot of research was involved as well to understand what other offerings were. Also, obviously, in some ways, contract work is similar to what we do. So a search online around different recruitment websites to find out what rates were. That was a good way of looking at pricing structure, and that helped us get to the right areas there. Project management came in very the project management background with different frameworks, and what I've done previously before starting the company was very influential on how I how I got going. I put together my own business case, what the business plan was for why I was starting the business, a very in-depth action tracker with different areas, obviously service and operations, marketing, accounts, and spoke to my colleagues to work out exactly what was the best way to start the company, as in what were their thoughts. I got some really good advice from people, and I think everyone thinks that you have to be self-made, when actually I think it's better to ask a lot of questions and see what other people think. I think a team is the most important thing you can have. You know, two heads are better than one, etc., etc. We've all heard the different analogies and idioms, etc. But ultimately, I think I got a lot of advice from a lot of good people, and it's been really good that I can remotely speak to people who aren't in a similar area to me, from up north in the UK. I'm down in the southeast, or further afield in different countries. Sorry to break it to you, I'm not quite in Texas. You probably guessed I'm in the UK now. And yeah, it's that was the way I started. I think it was an action tracker. It was understanding all of the business arrangements. It was breaking it down into those different areas, the service and the operations that I'm offering, the marketing that needs to be taken into account, how to start, accounts, and making sure you've got everything sorted from a tax perspective, get the right accountant, all of that information, putting it all through an action, not just an action tracker, but that sort of methodology, working out my timelines, putting it all into place, and it works very well. It's project management 101, to be honest. It's the right kind of experience to have to start a business.
Who'd you get the best advice from?
I've had some fantastic advice from different people, including yourself, Dean.
I was just being funny.
Yeah. I've had some fantastic advice.
I wish you had listed like 35 people.
Yeah, that would have been great. And then at the end say, "Oh yeah, I talked to Dean a bunch, but I just do that as my give back to the community."
No, in all seriousness, you've given me some fantastic advice. I've also worked with some fantastic people over the years. Operation directors, services directors, chief experience officers, chief delivery officers, chief information officers, and I've been very lucky that I've worked at a couple of different organizations over the years, and that's helped.
I even at this stage, I'm still learning, right? So that you're asking people, getting input, and putting that through your project management, processes. That's super. And as you go, you can help, as you're doing today, helping other people with this decision and helping them, have the courage, if you have the conviction to do it. That's great. What do you think are a couple of things that you would want people to know that are struggling with this decision or have made this decision and are jumping out?
Make sure that you've discussed it fully with any family who could be affected by the decision. Make sure, if you can, get a contract lined up before you start. Obviously, that's something that you can't always do, but that helps. Make sure that you're in a position where it's financially viable to go a certain amount of time. I took risks and issues, obviously, a lot in project management, but there is a risk that you may not have a contract for 3 months, 6 months. So are you financially set and got mitigation in place to be able to handle that kind of decision? It doesn't all go well. You will have some really tough times as well. And we've obviously talked around imposter syndrome and things around that. You've got to make sure that it's going to be rough and tough that first 3 to 6 months at least. So just make sure that you've got a good, viable plan. You've discussed it with everyone, and you're financially set to be able to move forward with it. And you've done your research as well. Obviously, you do need to know. I know it sounds simple stuff, but how to incorporate. What tax perspective you got to look at. Are you going to where your offices are going to be? How are you going to manage people? Have you got viable customers waiting to go? Have you checked the market that you're moving into? Because if the market's flooded and there's no way for you to move into that, you need to think about that as well. So there's a lot of different variables to think about. I think just make sure you've got a cogent plan that you put in place before you start.
Yeah, that's super advice. I'll and thank you so much for being here. And we're going to have you back as you grow and literally take over the entire world. So I'll tell you a quick goodbye little thing. I moved my wife to New York once. I started one business, then I started another. And she is, and this is helpful and not helpful. She's so great. She goes, "Oh, sure." But it didn't ever get to the level of, "Are you sure you're sure?" Do you know what that? She's like, "Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead." But anyway, wonderful to have you. We're so excited about what you're doing. And we love that you're around for us to help other people go through this journey, make these tough decisions. And we're all backing you for your great success.
Thanks, guys. Means a lot.
Thanks, Steve. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. One of the questions that we get asked often from after these podcasts and after discussions with leaders like this is where else can I find more content and information that is available to help us as a leader, whether that's somebody that's transitioning from a firm to doing it on their own, or just leading an organization and trying to upskill and up-level them. I'd love to point you towards something more concrete. The Consultant's Way is a skill development program that we've built exactly for this challenge and for the things that organizations face. And if you're shifting from technical execution to being more advisory, if you're trying to solve the commercial skills, we have a bunch of assets over there. And I'd like to point you to www.consultantsway.com to see more of that, as well as some of our other content and leadership. If you just want more conversations like what you saw today, hit subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we release new episodes every Monday where we have a new leader come on and talk more about the things that they're dealing with and experiencing in their organization and ways that they've solved some of those. If you want to reach out to Dean or myself, you can find us on our LinkedIn page, or you can always email the show at podcast@consultantsway.com. Thanks, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you next time.